Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing fantastic. Let us continue our reading of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar play. Okay. We were in scene 2 of Act 3. Now this edition, the way it's printed, doesn't have the line numbers, okay? I wish it did, but I did not know that when I bought it, that it wouldn't have the line numbers. My other versions have line numbers, so I would usually tell you we're on line such and such, but it doesn't have it. But what I can say is that we're in the section where Antony and others with Caesar's body come in. Okay? Let's begin. Bismillah. Here comes his body mourned by Mark Antony, who, though he had no hand in his death, shall receive the benefit of his dying, a place in the commonwealth, as which of you shall not. With this I depart, that I slew my best lover for the good of Rome. I have the same dagger for myself, when it shall please my country to need my death. That was the continuation of Brutus's speech. Very interesting. All, live, Brutus, live. First citizen, bring him with triumph home unto his house. Second citizen, give him a statue with his ancestors. Third citizen, let him be Caesar. Fourth citizen, Caesar's better parts shall now be crowned in Brutus. First citizen, we'll bring him to his house with shouts and clamors. Brutus, my countrymen. Second citizen, peace, silence, Brutus speaks. Peace, ho! Brutus, good countrymen, let me depart alone, and for my sake stay here with Antony. Do grace to Caesar's corpse, and grace his speech, tending to Caesar's glories, which Mark Antony, by our permission, is allowed to make. I do entreat you, not a man depart, save I, alone, to Antony have spoke. Exit. First citizen, stay, ho, and let us hear Mark Antony. Third citizen, let him go up into the public chair. We'll hear him. Noble Antony, go up. Antony, for Brutus' sake, I am beholding to you. Goes into the pulpit. Fourth citizen, what does he say of Brutus? Third citizen, he says for Brutus' sake he finds himself beholding to us all. 'Twere best he speak no harm of Brutus here. This Caesar was a tyrant. Nay, that's certain, we're at blessed, that the Rome is rid of him. Second citizen, peace, let us hear what Antony can say. Antony, you, gentle Romans, citizens. Peace, ho, let us hear him. Antony, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar, that noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here on the leaves of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious. And Brutus is an honorable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that poor, the have cred Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure he is an honorable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? O judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me. First citizen, methinks there is much reason in his sayings. Second citizen, if thou consider rightly of the matter, Caesar has had great wrong. Has he masters? I fear there will be a worse come in his place. Fourth citizen, mark ye his words, he will not take the crown, therefore 'tis certain he was not ambitious. If it be found so, some will dear abide it. Poor soul, his eyes are red as fire with weeping. There's none a nobler man in Rome than Antony. Now mark him. He begins again to speak. Antony. But yesterday the word of Caesar might have stood against the world. Now lies he there, and none so poor to him reverence. O masters, if I were disposed to stir your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage, I should do Brutus wrong and Cassius wrong, who, you all know, are honorable men. I will not do them wrong. I rather choose to wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you. Now, let's take a step back for a second. I want you to notice a pattern here, that he is setting up a contrast where he's like, well, look what they did to Caesar. Is that honorable? They said his crime was being ambitious. Brutus is an honorable man, but he's showing the actions that Brutus did were not so honorable. And to be ambitious by itself isn't something dishonorable. So when he keeps saying that the good is interred with the bones of those who do good, and how his heart is in the casket with Caesar, he's showing up this type of brotherly affection, which is actually honorable, right? To not betray those who helped you once they're dead. And he said he must pause till it comes back to him, his heart, which is in the coffin. You're seeing now how the elites have to get the attention of the people. You really do begin to see that. How you're not just going to tell them one thing at this time. It's a pivotal moment. This is like a tragedy in history that would be worse than if any American president had that happen to them. Because Caesar accomplished more than many of the presidents we have today, and was probably more loved. So, due to that, think about how the butchers in America would have to respond to the American people if they did such an act. Okay? That's why when he says, your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage, he's kind of hinting at something there, isn't he? And he says here he doesn't want to do Cassius and Brutus wrong, which would make the people see how they did Caesar wrong and how Antony is actually acting in a sort of hybrid, honorable way. Let's continue. Then I will wrong such honorable men. But here is a parchment with the seal of Caesar. I found it in his closet. 'Tis his will. Let but the commons hear the testament, which, pardon me, I do not mean to read. They would go and kiss dead Caesar's wounds, and dip their napkins in his sacred blood. Look at that. Dip their napkins in sacred blood. What do you do with napkins? You rub them on your face, right? To clean. So, if they're dipping their napkin in, they're going to rub it on their face, but it's not to get clean, it's to smear their enemy's blood onto their face. It's almost like war paint, right? Put a little here, put a little there. You know what time it is. Wow. Yea, beg a hair of him for memory, and dying mention it within their wills, bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto their issue. He really contrasted it with Brutus and him are honorable. I don't want to hurt honorable men. But he's showing the magnanimity of Caesar. Fourth citizen. We hear the will. Read it, Mark Antony. And all. The will. The will. We will hear Caesar's will. Antony. Have patience, gentle friends. I must not read it. It is not a meet. You know how Caesar loved you. So here, you know how Caesar loved you. Think about that. Because Brutus is trying to make the mob calm, to make them happy that a tyrant is gone. Whereas Mark Antony is like, you know Caesar cared for you, the people. So if he cared for you, will you care for him? And if you care for him, what will you do to those who butchered him? You are not wood, you are not stones, but men. Getting at the heart of the men. What do wood and stones lack? Emotions. Right? Fraternity. And being men hearing the will of Caesar, it will inflame you. It will make you mad. 'Tis good you know not that you are his heirs. So here, it will inflame you. It will make you mad. Them being the heirs. For if you should, what would come of it? Fourth citizen, read the will. We'll hear it. Antony, you shall read us the will. Caesar's will. Antony, will you be patient? Will you stay a while? I have overshot myself to tell you of it. I fear I wrong the honorable men whose daggers have stabbed Caesar. I do fear it. So, clever right there. I fear I wrong the honorable men. Are they so honorable? They took out the man who made the people his heirs. You see? Daggers, stabbings, right? Fourth citizen, they were traitors, honorable men. All, the will, the testament. Second citizen, they were villains, murderers. The will, read the will. Antony, you will compel me then to read the will? Then make a ring about the corpse of Caesar, and it shall let me show you. And let me show you him that made the will. Shall I descend? And will you give me leave? Several citizens. Come down, descend. You shall have leave. Antony comes down. A ring, stand around. Stand from the ears, the hearse, stand from the body. Room for Antony, most noble Antony. Antony. Nay, press not so upon me. Stand far off. Several citizens. Stand back, room, bear back. Antony. If you have tears, prepare to shed them now. You all do know this mantle. I remember the first time ever Caesar put it on. 'Twas on a summer's evening, in his tent. That day he overcame the Nervi. Look, in this place ran Cassius' dagger through. See what a rent the envious Casca made. Through this the well-beloved Brutus stabbed. And as he plucked his cursed steel away, mark how the blood of Caesar followed it, as rushing out of doors, to be resolved, if Brutus so unkindly knocked or no. For Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel. Judge, O you gods, how dearly Caesar loved him. This was the most unkindest cut of all. For when the noble Caesar saw him stab, in gratitude, more strong than traitor's arms. So pause right here. So he says, look in this place. He's bringing the attention to the wounds. That has a very potent impact, isn't it? And then see the rent that envious Casca made. And then he contrasts the behavior of Cassius and Casca with Brutus. He says, they'll be well beloved. That's a potent thing to say, right? Somebody you cared about did that. Really think about it. Was Caesar's angel? So does an angel do such a horrid demonic act? Devilish act? He's really doing great crowd work here. And then he says, then he talks to his gods, right? How dearly Caesar loved him. Calling the action unkind, of course. And then mentioned traitor's arms and gratitude. Quite vanquished him, then burst his mighty heart. And in this his mantle muffling up his face, even at the base a pompous statua, which all the while ran the blood. Great Caesar fell. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen! Then I, and you, and all of us fell down, whilst bloody treason flourished over us. Oh, now you weep, and I perceive you feel the dint of pity. These are gracious drops, kind souls. What weep you, when you but behold our Caesar's vesture wounded? Look you here. Here is himself marred, as you see, with traitors. Citizens, O piteous spectacle! O noble Caesar! O woeful day! O traitors, villains! A most bloody sight! Will we be revenged? All, revenge! About! Seek! Burn! Fire! Kill! Slay! Let not a traitor live! Antony, stay, countrymen! First citizen, peace there, hear the noble Antony. We'll hear from him, we'll follow him, we'll die with him. So see here, you can see how the crowd work did good. You know, Brutus made that flaw of letting Antony speak. Antony used his opportunity very poetically and accurately to swift the tides. Had Antony not spoken in the play, it would have been dishonorable on his part, right? Because people would have been looking at him like, why is Caesar's right-hand guy not speak? And obviously, people are going to wait to see how he responds so they know how to respond themselves. So they're like, revenge, seek, burn. Getting the crowds worked up here. Alright? The language here is just fantastic. Because you see how he changed the way in which the people viewed Brutus. Right? Before he set it up. Honorable men. Now the crowds are calling them, you know, traitors and villains. Remember, Brutus was warned. Remember, he said, not that I love Caesar less, but that I love Rome more. So Brutus went with the example of putting the state, right? Putting the state, the country, the nation. Antony flipped it and put it towards the people. That Caesar loved the people, and he loved Brutus. So there was two angles here. Who will win? The one who evokes the state, the nation, the ideal of the nation, or the one who brings it down to earth and talks about brotherhood, actual honor, honor to those who were your allies and cared for you. It's a very tense thing because it just shows the split in the male mind of the citizen and of the soldier, right? Of the politician versus the commoner. Now, he says here, Brutus, remember in the previous video, I honor him, but as he was ambitious, I slew him. Okay? That's why Antony looks at the marks and says, look here. Basically saying, look at this dirty work. Because ambition, right, was mentioned. And then they talked about how he pushed away the crown. If he would have been ambitious, he would have taken up that position. He was ambitious for the honor and glory of Rome and conquering, right? Antony brought up Gaul when he talked about his armor, what he had worn, and how in that tent, when they overcame the Nervi, right? He was wearing that outfit, the mantle. However that mantle looked. Think about it. So he is actually saying Caesar was in the battlefield tent, conquered enemies for Rome. And look, that same garment is now there. And the senators butchered him. He survived the enemies of Rome, but he couldn't survive those of Rome who claimed to love Rome. It's very smart. It's fantastic the way Shakespeare contrasted these two figures. Mark Antony is technically a politician, but he's a soldier first, whereas Brutus is a statesman first, soldier not so much, right? And you're seeing two people here who like Caesar. One stopped liking him, and one continued, right? So you're seeing who really cared for Caesar. Obviously Antony. Brutus stopped and betrayed him, right? Whether you agree with what happened, whether you think Caesar was a tyrant or not, still. Now remember, Brutus also mentions, I say that Brutus' love to Caesar was no less than his. Hold up. Antony said, cleverly, that he thought, he mentioned angel, didn't he? For Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel. If Brutus would have loved Caesar as an angel, he could not have stuck the dagger in. Right? Very potent. Look, in this place ran Cassius' dagger through. See what a rent the envious Casca made. Through this the well-beloved Brutus stabbed, as he plucked his cursed steel away. And then, when he mentions as rushing out of doors, you can actually picture that. And then, think about that. Which is actually accurate, right? A mess. Absolute mess. So it is said it was in that, like from the chest down to, to the belly button and the side, so in the squishy parts of us, where there's a lot of fluid. Really a scene there, isn't it? He brought up the visceral reaction, whereas Brutus, he had a good speech, but it didn't compare. Didn't compare. Let me know what you think. It's a great play. I'm a huge fan of Shakespeare, no matter how many times you read his other works. Each time you'll see it in a different way. And, man, I wish he would have wrote even more. I'm a very big fan of Shakespeare. So, I hope you become one as well. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.